Hello there. I am going to take a little time today to go over the course syllabus for AP United States History 2. Now some of this will be repetitive because I've had the students in AP US History 1, and so they are pretty familiar with what procedures are for the class. But sometimes parents are not, so I thought it would be good for the parents to know what we did in AP US History 2, so here we go. Obviously your son or daughter is in AP US History 2 because they have successfully fulfilled the requirements for AP US History 1. I'm very, very pleased to say that all of the students in AP US History 1, all 36, received grades of A second semester last year. They were a great bunch of kids, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them in 2018-19 as well. This year in AP US History 2, we will be covering from World War II through the administration of George W. Bush. Again, we will be an interactive class. We will want kids to engage during the lectures, which they've done a very good job of, and have some good questioning. The only difference between AP US History 2 and AP US History 1 is there are some controversial events, especially during the 60s, from 1960 to 1969. We will have some discussions that might be considered non-conservative in nature. This could include some discussion and some language, or some possibly viewing of content that might be rated slightly higher than PG-13. We do not show R-rated movies in this class. You do not have to worry about that. And because of that, we don't have any opting out of discussions or video content. I'd like everybody to please take that into consideration prior to committing to AP US History 2, that we will be talking, frankly, about some issues in the 1960s that might be a little bit off color in comparison to a very conservative curriculum. Also, students that are enrolled in AP US History 2 will have the opportunity to participate in the Washington, D.C. experience. It is not required to take the class. The academic part of this is the most important, and we certainly respect any decision by any student not to take part in the D.C. experience. It's going to cost approximately $2,200 per student to go to Washington, D.C., and the kids have been involved in summer fundraising, and we will need to continue to pay on those balances, and all student balances must be below $1,000 by Christmas vacation, and final payments are due on March 1st, 2018. We do need to remind you that, once we get through September, students that opt out after that time would probably lose deposit money, etc., because we've had to make payments for airfare and motels and stuff to guarantee those. So we're going to need a commitment no later than October 1st, whether students are going to be in the DC experience or not. After October 1st, anyone that would drop out would forfeit any deposits or money they had earned, as we would need that money still to take the trip with the other students. Another thing I want students and parents to be very aware of is, because of travel out of state and the dynamics of the Washington, D.C. experience, students must be well disciplined and must be law-abiding citizens to travel across the country to Washington, D.C. So my rule is that during the senior year, any student who would be suspended from school for major violations of school policy, or would be involved in the court system for violations such as alcohol, drugs, theft, social media, assault, etc., will not travel to Washington, D.C., and any deposit monies and monies fundraised would not be refunded. The point being there is that if I'm going to take you 3,000 miles away from home and trust that you're going to do what you're supposed to do during that time, that you have to be a good citizen prior to our trip. So again, we want no misbehavior the senior year. We don't want any major violation of school policy, or we don't want any student in the court system for illegal activities such as alcohol, drugs, theft, social media, assault, etc. So please take that in consideration. We want good citizens. I don't have a lot of concerns that way, but it is something that we say every year. Also, students have to receive good grades. It is an advanced placement class. Any student who would receive a grade of less than B for first semester would be removed from the class, and also would not be traveling to Washington, D.C. And the kids have to be careful because they don't want to get behind, because if the administration deems a student at risk to graduate prior to our trip, which is April 6th through the 13th, 2019, they would not be allowed to go as well. So I'd like kids to keep all that in consideration concerning the DC trip. We will assess AP US History 2 very similar to the way we assessed AP US History 1. The class will be graded on daily lectures, reading and writing assignments, biography assignments, formative assessments such as quizzes, open note tests, feedback from the lectures. We also will grade on summative assessments, which would be your major examinations, closed note exams, and of course we will continue to have classroom participation and our participation points. Again, we will be video recording the lectures each day as we did last year. We will expect students, if they miss school, to get on the district website under My Classroom website in specific and get those particular notes taken care of. A change for this year is test reviews will be considered a perk, and we will not video record those. So if a student misses a test review, they still will be required to take the test the next day, and will need to get that information of the review outside of class, probably from another student. So be good to be in school, especially the day of a review and the day of a test. Students that missed tests, summative examinations, will take a alternative test the day return to school. It's always easier to take the first one. It is always to the benefit of the student. Again, I do not give a lot of homework in AP US History 2, similar to last year, but when we do give a reading or writing assignment or a biography assignment, we expect those to be in on the due date. The due date will be assigned, and students will have until 3:30 p.m. to get in their assignments by that day. If they do not turn that assignment in on time, they will have one school day after the due date to get that assignment in, which will be graded at 50% of the total value. If the assignment is not submitted at least one day after the due date, it will result in a 0. Again, that is based on the fact that I do not give a lot of homework. We will be having participation points again, just some reminders. If you're going to be absent, attendance is very important in AP courses. I do understand the non-control students have on activity absences. That is left up to the administration, so I do understand that. But if a student is going to be gone for activities or be gone and know in advance, it would be great to let me know so we can make arrangements to secure the information they're going to need during the absence. And again, if you're absent and cannot give me that information because it's a surprise absence, so to speak, or non-planned, you need to get on the guidance website, the US History website, and get all the information that you need to make up the day. Participation points include arriving to class on time, participating in classroom discussions as required, making sure you're bringing your 3-ring binder, your pen or pencil and paper to class every day, and go from there. We do allow students to make up participation points if they are within 1% of the next semester grade. For example, if a student ends the semester with an 89.2%, they can come in on what I call my student makeup day and do some extra assignments to make up those attendance points and try to get the higher semester grade. But you do have to be within 1% of the next grade to make that work. Of course, classroom rules. Teachers always have classroom rules. I would rather call them procedures. It doesn't seem as punitive. I have some pretty simple things I like. Number one, I like kids to be in class on time. Tardiness is a disruption to all students, so please be on time. AP students that have been with me before understand that if you need to use the restroom, the best time is to come to me at the start of the period when you report to class. I'll rather you be a little bit late to start a class and get up and leave in the middle. So that's kind of how we work that. Make sure you bring all proper materials to class. Even AP kids sometimes don't bring their binders like they're supposed to. We need those 3-ring binders that I will supply to the students every day in class. Make sure they are here, along with pencil, paper, and etc. Food and drinks. I do realize that kids get parched during the school day. I also realize that our athletes need to be hydrated, so we have no problem with beverages in the classroom. We only ask that they have an appropriate cover so that we can avoid unnecessary messes for our custodial staff, and we do not want any glass containers with liquids to come in the classroom for obvious reasons. We do not allow food in the classroom during instruction. Any food that is brought into the classroom is discarded in the waste paper basket, and the participation points for the day are forfeited. I do, as the kids will tell you, often provide treats for good efforts in class, If I decide a special day for food, such as ice cream bars or whatever, then we will certainly be allowed to do that. All testing, as in the past, will be done in the Commons. Students report straight to the Commons for testing. They are to make sure they turn their cell phones off and silence them, because if they engage at all during the test, the grade results in a 0. They know proper testing procedures in the Commons, to a table facing forward. Cell phones is something I really want to talk about. There are very limited times that I would ever have kids use cell phones in this class. Therefore, we expect the cell phones to be properly stored one of two ways. The students can either put them in the cell phone pockets that I have on my closet door, and they can store them there with the power off during the course of the period. Or I have gotten a little bit more techie as I've gotten older, and I have 4 charging stations that if they want to bring their phones in and put them in the charging stations and get a good charged battery before they leave, that's great. I don't want to see the phones visible on their person, or certainly I do not want them to engage in class. If that happens, then we simply remove the participation points for the week, confiscate the cell phone, turn it over to the administration for any disciplinary procedures that would be outlined in the student-parent handbook. If there's ever a time I want them to do research on their phones, I will give them permission to do that, and we'll go from there. Another thing that's important to me is AP US History 2 Kids Act as a family. These students have all been individually selected by myself as the instructor. It's a specialty course. We want to make sure students treat each other with dignity and respect 100% of the time. This would include making correct choices in and out of the classroom. And as with a family, discussions will take place with successes and when expectations are not met. Just make sure that we understand that with a family, members do not always agree with each other on occasion, and despite that reality, we want respect shown towards one another at all times in and out of the classroom. Most of the students, those that choose to go to DC, are going to spend 7 days and 7 nights together in pretty close quarters. Probably haven't done that with a large group before in their life, so we really expect people to get along well. It's been a wonderful group of kids, and I don't see any problems there, but we want kids to act as a family in this class and get along very, very well. The course will be graded as it was last year, 90 to 100 an A, 80 to 89 a B, 70 to 79 a C, although we don't even talk about C's, and we're certainly not going to talk about D's and F's because that will not happen. Our goal is, like I mentioned earlier, that every single student would receive an A for both semesters. My job is to teach your child at an excellent level, and I plan to do that. So please make sure that everyone understands that we are expecting A's mostly and B's maybe. But we'd like to have all A's. Also, communication again is a key. The kids know this. All students have access to my cell phone number, which is 307-431-4849. We want communication between myself and the students. This does not have to be just during school hours or during class. I have no problem with the student texting or calling me in the evening hours if they have any questions at all about the class or the trip to DC. A text or phone call can go a long way to prevent any miscommunication on assignments or reviews or examinations or the DC experience. And I really firmly believe that no question is foolish and no issue should go unanswered. So good communication will always work for us. I want to talk a little bit about the AP US History National Examination. This will be administered in May of 2019. Students enrolled in AP US History 2 do not have to take the AP History exam. It's optional. The school district will cover the cost of the test at $100. The student will be required to commit to taking the AP exam by December 18th of 2018. They will either say yes or no once they commit. If they fail to take the test once they commit, they'll have to reimburse the school district the $100 fee because the district has to order the tests the first of the year. Now, there often is a school-scheduled extracurricular activity that falls on the date of the AP exam. This year it was regional track. So the student is going to have to check with the track coaches, soccer coaches, etc. to find out what the schedule is. If you have a school-sponsored activity on the day of the AP exam, and you choose to go to that activity, and you are very much interested in taking the AP exam, we will try to find an alternative AP exam date if interested. But again, that's something I need to know in advance to make preparations. So we will not punish the student and not allow them to take the AP exam because of extracurricular activities that are scheduled, but I do need a full commitment if that's what they want to do. The results on the AP examination will have absolutely no effect on the student's final second semester grade, whether they take the test or not. The AP exam is graded on a 5-point scale, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest, and they are graded 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Colleges and universities consider credit based on the score received by the student. Generally, most public universities consider college credit to students who score 3 or higher. However, each college or university has their own target score for credit, including Wyoming colleges and universities. I know for a fact that the University of Wyoming requires a 4 on the AP history exam to give college credit. As I've mentioned in talking to you before, it is not my goal that every kid scores well on the AP US history exam. I don't believe that if I teach to the exam that the students will learn American history from 1750 to 2009 very well. And so we do not emphasize that. It is simply a perk or a benefit for students that want to take the exam and try to get college credit. My goal, and it's been pretty successful, is when your child leaves AP US History 1 and AP US History 2, they will have 2 large binders of information that will be very beneficial to them when they go to college, and they will know US history very well. Those binders will also give students an opportunity to do reports, speeches, etc. in college based on that world of knowledge they have accumulated over the 2 years in AP US history. I have many, many students that contact me that have used their information on college work. Getting back to the AP US history examination, it's 3 hours and 15 minutes long. It has 4 components. Multiple choice, 55 questions, takes 55 minutes, and it's 40% of the exam total scoring. The second part of the AP exam is short answer. There are 3 questions. There are 40 minutes to complete those 3. That is 20% of the total exam score. There is 1 documented based question, which is 60 minutes long, and it's 25% of the total exam score. And there is 1 long essay, which is 1 question, 40 minutes, 15% of the total exam score. The tough thing about the AP history exam is the students do not know which time period in history is going to be asked until the day of the test. And so that makes it, of all the AP exams, the most difficult to score on. Again, because you don't know exactly what time period. They may ask questions about the American Revolution. They may ask questions about women's suffrage. They may ask questions about the William Jefferson Clinton administration. You just never know. And so that's the biggest, I guess, detriment to the AP exam is being studied up enough on the areas in which they're going to ask. These kids have covered a lot of material in detail, will have in the last 2 years, and I think if they want to take the AP exam, they'll probably do pretty well. Last thing I'd like to close with on the syllabus is I have a sign that's very important to me about trust, and it says, "I do not trust easily, but I trust you. Please don't make me regret it." AP US History 2 has a lot of trust factors. We have to trust each other. We have to trust that we're going to do what's right for the class and for the trip. And so I have a great bunch of kids. I trust each and every one of them. It took a while for them to gain my trust, as it maybe took a while for them to gain my trust. But we don't want to disappoint each other. We want to be able to trust each other to do the right things. So I look forward to teaching your child a second year. They have been absolutely awesome last year, and I think we're going to have a great 2018-19. If you have any questions whatsoever about this syllabus, about the DC experience, about anything that has to do with the class, please feel free to give me a call at the school. Stop by the school at my office. I have 1st period and 7th period free. I'll be teaching history the rest of the time, or give me a text or a phone call on my cell phone. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and that goes for students and parents. Thanks very much, and we look forward to seeing your kids on August 23rd.